Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. I talked about Toph last week, but unfortunately one big, interesting interaction dominated the conversation. So today I'm going to take a look at a couple of other interactions that I saw a fair bit when this card was released. Amy controls Toph, the first Metalbender, and Blood Moon. Is her Soul Ring a mountain? Okay, so anytime we're dealing with these continuous effects questions, we need to identify what order the continuous effects apply. The first thing that we look at is layers. Toph and Blood Moon both have type, subtype, or supertype changing effects, which means they both apply in layer 4. The next thing we look at is dependencies. Since these effects apply in the same layer and neither one is a characteristic defining ability, the possibility for a dependency exists. We can see that applying Toph's effect first changes the Soul Ring into a land, which changes the set of objects Blood Moon's effect can apply to. This means that Blood Moon's ability is dependent on Toph's and will wait until after Toph to apply. Accordingly, any artifacts controlled by the Toph player will be artifact land-mountains. If they have any artifact types such as vehicle or equipment, they'll still keep those types. Likewise for any of their original card types or super types. Check out my video on Dryad Arbor plus Relic's Roar for a fuller explanation of why that is. Like always, Blood Moon will take away any abilities that those artifacts have and instead give them the ability to tap for red. This happens in layer 4 alongside the subtype changes, which means that if you were to earthbend one of those artifacts, it would end up with haste since the ability adding normally happens in a later layer. I talked about this phenomenon in detail in my video on Blood Moon and Bootlegger Stash. So after applying all relevant continuous effects, this would be the Soul Ring's characteristics, and this is what it would look like if you earthbent it. Note that the ability to return to the battlefield tapped is not an ability that the earthbent land has in itself, which is why I didn't put it on this mockup. That ability exists just somewhere in the game. I talked about this in my video on Threaten plus Earthbend. Another thing to note is that these results are independent of what player controls the Blood Moon, whose turn it is, and what order any of these permanents came into play. Now, if you were paying attention to the explanation about how dependencies set the order of continuous effects, you might have thought of an interesting question. What happens if two continuous effects are each dependent on each other? And for sure, this is a real thing that can actually happen. Let's say that instead of Toph plus Blood Moon, we have a Toph plus Encroaching Mycosynth. In that case, the Toph depends on Encroaching Mycosynth because applying that first makes Toph itself into an artifact, thereby increasing the number of artifacts the Toph applies to. But Encroaching Mycosynth depends on Toph also. That's because Toph makes artifacts, such as Encroaching Mycosynth, into lands, and Encroaching Mycosynth only applies to non-land permanents. Therefore, there's a dependency loop. I want everyone to dig deep down and forget everything that they know about the rules. What do you feel in your soul that the answer should be? Well, the answer is that timestamps are used to decide which one applies first. And that means that this interaction works out pretty much the way I think most people would expect. And now, because I know that you filthy animals want this, let's bring the Blood Moon back and see what would happen if all three of these were in play at the same time. I'll work through the example where they entered in alphabetical order, in other words, Blood Moon first, then Encroaching Mycosynth, then Toph, and I'll leave the rest for the good people in the comments section. As discussed previously, there are three dependencies among these permanents. Blood Moon and Encroaching Mycosynth depend on Toph, and Toph depends on Encroaching Mycosynth. Because there is a dependency loop, we will discard the dependency rule and apply the effects involved in the timestamp order. Therefore, we apply Encroaching Mycosynth first, making both Toph and Blood Moon into artifacts. After applying this first effect, we reevaluate the ordering of the remaining effects. Do any dependencies exist now? Well, Blood Moon still depends on the Toph for the same reason as before. Applying Toph first would make all three permanents into lands, which changes the set of objects Blood Moon applies to. There is no dependency the other way, so the Blood Moon waits until after Toph applies. All three permanents will end up as artifact land-mountains with no abilities other than the one to tap for red. In addition to this, Toph and Blood Moon will retain their previous types of creature and enchantment respectively. Note that taking away a permanent's abilities that generate a continuous effect does not result in the game undoing that effect if it's already applied. And with that groundwork set, you have all the tools that you need to tackle the other 5 permutations of these cards' respective timestamps. Or heck, even throw some more continuous effects in. That's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling. Until then, I hope you have a great day.